In this lesson, we're going to talk about finding your market on LinkedIn, finding the different types of audiences and how to use the tools available to get after the premium audience that LinkedIn provides, right? We talked about how this is one of the key selling points of LinkedIn ads is getting to a higher quality audience. So that's what we're going to look at today. So the first question that we're going to try and solve is, what filters are available? Yeah, as I said, the premium audience is really what sets it apart. We had looked in the last training a little bit about how to have different campaigns focused on the different types of audiences that you can go after. So we're gonna look at that and how you tap into that. The second thing that I get a lot is how big of an audience should I be targeting? There's some guidelines I want to walk you through for the different types of ad campaigns. But again, the big thing I will look at here is I don't want to dump every potential prospect I can work with into LinkedIn, because what we find is that the more you can tailor that ad to the specific individual or types of individuals you're targeting, the better results you're going to get, and it's going to help you keep your costs in line, have better ROI, and all those fun things. So LinkedIn targeting, this is what it looks like. This is the options you have available. A couple things I'll walk you through, like what some of my most common targets are, my most common filters. But the big thing I wanted to first start with is when you see all this information, if you're in the B2B space, you're targeting businesses, it all looks great. And you might want to jump in there and go in and use every single filter available and say, okay, not only do I want people the job title directors of marketing, but I also want them to be in the job function of marketing and have the job seniority of director. And I want to caution you there on that for a little bit. Typically, what we're trying to find with our audience and targeting is to get specific, so we're not just targeting everyone, right? But I want to limit the amount of filters I'm using. Typically, I'll try to be around 2 to 4. That I'm looking at, because some of it's just redundancies after a while, right? So that example I gave of like a director of marketing and then also trying to target by function and seniority. If their job title is director of marketing, I can pretty much say that that's the type of person you want to go after, and putting in their function of marketing and seniority is a little bit of overkill. And the reason that's important is that each additional filter you add on is going to start to limit your audience, making it smaller. And what happens then is LinkedIn's going to charge you a bit more on what you have to bid to reach those people. So I want you to keep that in mind as we're going through. Let me talk you through, these are the 5 most common filters that we'll go after. Industry, the big one for everyone in B2B. Again, if I'm targeting both, IT companies and marketing companies, there's different language, there's different outcomes that both of those are looking to achieve. So I want to call that out in my ad copy, which we'll talk about more. But industry is a big one. Company size. Many of our clients will have a restriction on company size. Now, LinkedIn does their size based on employees. So keep that in mind if you're kind of have that number in your head more of revenue. Try and work backwards to figure out the company size of employees that you want. Job title, one of the major ones that we'll use. Job function, a little bit less we'll use that one, because usually I can get that handled in job title. There are some situations where someone will have some specific function that they want to target, so that's one that we'll use. And then member groups, I wanted to point out for people that are targeting an audience that have more of an interest base. You can use member groups. There's groups out there specifically for digital marketing people. There's groups out there specifically for CEOs and small business owners and everything you can think of. If you're targeting, if you have a service or product that caters to people that have a specific interest, let's say people interested in yoga or golfing, things like that, that's really where the groups comes into play. It's the interest targeting that's really available on LinkedIn. So that's one that I always like to mention and bring up here. It's one that we'll look at for the right types of clients. Now, with your groups, with your targeting, I always tell people by thinking big and then narrow it down. So if you haven't done any ads before, or you're just getting started on LinkedIn ads, I first will write out a list of what we call our prospect profile with every type of person I can work with that's a good target for me. Then I will break down and say, okay, how many people are in each of these audiences? What different people are better for me? Who do I sell better to? But at first, I just want to get everything down and then start to circle out the ones that are a good starting place. I like to have 3 to 5 different campaigns or targets set up as I'm launching into a new campaign. That can differ for everyone. Now, in terms of also like starting to narrow this down, I want to talk a little bit about the typical sizes of audiences. Now, for a LinkedIn ad to run, any type of ad, whether it's sponsored email, sponsored content, a text ad, it needs a minimum audience size of 300 people. So keep that in mind if you're doing some retargeting. Your list is going to have to get to 300 people visiting a certain page before you can use that in an ad. Now, with that said, just because that's the minimum doesn't mean that's where I'm focusing or trying to hit. LinkedIn will tell you that for a sponsored content ad, they recommend having a minimum audience size of 300,000. I've found that doesn't need to be the case. I'm not sure if that number comes from what they see work longevity-wise, but from what we've seen is that the smaller audience you have, you typically just need to switch up your creative a little bit more. So if you're targeting a group of people that there's only 30,000 potential users of your tool or your software, your service, whatever it may be, I've seen campaigns that have far less than 300,000, 30,000, 15,000. Now, for sponsored content, my goal is a little bit bigger. I like to be 50,000 plus if possible. But again, the smaller it is, typically what that will mean is you're just going to keep restarting new campaigns to that same audience to keep yourself in front of them. Now, for sponsored in-mail, that works really well with smaller audiences. Again, it's only going to send out a certain amount of people are going to click that each day based on your cost per click bid. So if you have a smaller audience, let's say you only have 1,000 people or 500 people you're going after, sponsored email might be the place for you to start just to test and see what the waters are like. Again, you can typically get clicks there for much cheaper. So also a good thing to keep in mind. But usually what I would recommend to people, if you have a really small audience, sponsored email is a good place to kind of start. Text ads, LinkedIn, they say somewhere around 60,000 to I think 400,000 is like the audience size they like. As I mentioned, text ads isn't a big focus of ours. We just see the click-through rate being so low that we'll just have a small bid, small CPC bid, and our audience sizes there typically run in line with what we're doing on sponsored content, or it's just based specifically on retargeting and people that have visited certain pages, right? So we can stay in front of them. So again, sponsored content, usually for bigger type of audiences, can work with smaller. Sponsored email can work with all sizes, but specifically if you only have smaller, if you're only going after CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, you're either going to have to expect to spend a lot on sponsored content and update your creative a lot, or you could start with some sponsored email and it's a little bit more personal of a touch. So we're looking at right now, we looked at this in the first video. This is your LinkedIn Insights, what they call your website demographics. The reason I want to show this again is it's a great place. If you're not sure, if you have a wide range of the types of people that you've worked with in the past, or you're just starting, you have a small client roster, people that are visiting your page is a great place to get ideas for new ways to do your targeting, right? You can look at some specific job titles, because this is the people that are visiting your website, and it's the exact job titles they have on LinkedIn. You can also segment this to look by industry, company size, function, seniority. You can look at all these different things to say, here's the exact way, the exact language I should use in my filtering to make sure I'm getting to the best people that are interested in my material. You see here again, you see job title, seniority, size, location, country, company, all that. You can get the information based on people that are visiting your site, whether they are becoming customers or not. It's all that traffic coming to your domain. And it's a great tool to use, one that I highly recommend you get started today. Now, the other thing with audiences is matched audiences. That's what Facebook calls your custom audiences. Number of ways you can utilize these that we'll look at. We'll also talk more about this when we get into retargeting, but wanted to talk about the different ways to use matched audiences. So the first is a list upload. If you have an email list of all your buyers, or just a full email list of people that have opted in for your lead magnets or whatever it may be, you can upload that list and create a list that way. You can look at the website traffic. So what we looked at just a second ago, people that visit certain URLs, and you can show them ads or not show them ads based on what they've done. And then finally, you can use what's called named accounts on LinkedIn, meaning that specifically, if you have a list of 500 companies that you want to get appointments with, or you have people in those companies you want to get, you can put in the company name, or you can upload a list of those company names. Again, if you have specific types of accounts that you're going after, and send ads to just those people. So that's matched audiences for you in a nutshell. Now, I want to take some time to go in and show you exactly what it looks like to set up one of these audiences and some of the things that you're looking for there. So let's go ahead and take a look at that.